Hello everyone, this is part 14 of What If Naruto Awakened New Skills, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. As he finished, well over 1,000 ninja and thugs appeared from out of the surrounding woods. 3 more Narutos appeared in front of the group and charged at them with their wakizashis, see off anything in the way of their blades, fingers, hands, forearms, whole arms, lower legs, heads, and even see people in half already. The once black bridge was quickly turning the crimson of B. Wahei, Taihei, and Utsuri got up and moved to help the clones. Leave it to the clones, I'll take care of all of this. It will be a message to all those who think they can control the land of waves. I will not allow any to control it, said Naruto. The 3 quickly understood. It was something he had to do, though why he had to do it they weren't sure about. Very well, we'll leave this to you, said Wahei. Then Naruto did something that surprised them all. He sat down, pulled out a blank scroll and started writing something. They all looked on, an image of shock on each face. After about 5 minutes he finished writing and rolled up the scroll, bit his thumb and his palm on the floor. A plume of white smoke ensued, and as it cleared, a 2-tailed yellow fox with red tips to its ears and tails appeared with a scroll holder on its back, sitting facing Naruto, its tails wagging happily behind it. How can I help you, master? It asked, its voice light with an edge that sounded similar to electricity crackling and a playful tone to it. Denko Seka, I need you to take this message to Konoha and deliver it directly to my father, the 4th Hokage code Kekai Fuko, then wait and bring me his reply, as quick as you can. This is of the utmost importance, said Naruto, his tone serious as he put the scroll in the holder on the fox's back. Of course, master, replied the fox, bowing before running off at speeds most ninja would struggle to keep up with, all standing around where gobsmacked. It was Kakashi that spoke first. What was that about? What message did you send? He asked. Before Naruto answered, one of his clones dispersed to inform him that the other 2 were holding Sapai and everyone else was I'll explain in a few minutes. I've just got to take care of this first, he said as he got up and walked over to where Sapai was kneeling on the floor being held down by the 2 remaining clones. He stopped around a foot away from him and looked him in the eyes. As for you, you have tormented others, hurt them mentally and physically to bend them to your will. Now you will experience how it felt for your victims, whether dealt with by your own hand or under your supervision. You will know their pain, he said, his voice monotonous and cold, his eyes dark almost then they switched to the 5 stars, and for a full 5 minutes he stared straight into the fear-filled eyes in front of him. Then suddenly Sapai slumped over, his eyes closed and his body started pouring sweat. He's done a lot, and if what I saw was anything to go by, not much of his life has been neutral or nice. Despite the time differences in the technique, it's taken this long for me to go through it. Around 12 years of continuous torment. I'm a little surprised he's still breathing with that much tea. Still, his mind is broken now. I'm gonna leave it to the village to decide how to punish him, since it's only fitting they do it, he said. One of his clones then picked up the limp body and headed for the village. He then passed a scroll to the other, which started going around and collecting the heads of the missing ninja, and Naruto himself walked back to the group. Now then, let's head back to Tazuna's and I'll explain everything once we get there, said Naruto, and with that he, Hinata, Lee, Kakashi, Wahei, Taihei and Utsuri moved off towards Tazuna's house. Once they arrived back at Tazuna's, they all sat in the main room. It was a little crowded, but they managed. Hinata helped by sitting on Naruto's lap, and everyone stayed quiet and focused to hear what Naruto had to say. Once he'd seen that everyone was ready and waiting, he began. I sent a message to my father. Kekai Fuko means bloodline revival. I realized that if just brought my cousins back to Konoha, it was likely that the council would try to force Wahei and Taihei into marriages before anyone could check whether they would need to or not. We already know that Utsuri can't be forced to protect her from rape, but it may now be possible that they won't be able to force any of us, so I asked my dad. to dig into the laws and see how many were needed to stop them from forcing us. It may take a day or two for him to find the information. Then either we'll all be able to safely go back to Konoha, or those of us already attached will go back and find out what the council's decision is for myself, and then I'll make a decision regarding the rest of you depending on what they decide for me, he explained before looking around the room for any that may have questions. Kakashi was the first to decide to ask one. So what happens if the council tries to force you to take a second partner? He asked. Naruto's reply was swift and left no room for arguments. Then I will leave the village and with me will go Hinata, Sasuke and the Sand siblings. I also spoke to Hashi about it and he's already said that if I left the village because of the council's decision, then the entire of the Hyuga family will be withdrawn from Konoha's forces. Even Neji backed the decision. I am going to tell them about Sasuke and the Sand siblings before they make their final decision, but they won't find out about the Hyugas until it's too late, and if they want to change the decision so that I come back, then they're going to have to make an irrevocable law that the council may never force any person into a marriage or civil partnership. Then we will see just how desperate they are, he said. Kakashi thought it over for a few minutes before something else came to mind. What about Minato-sensei? What will he do if you leave? He asked. Naruto smiled. He was looking forward to seeing Kakashi's reaction. He will stay in Konoha as the Hokage, but he's going to do everything in his power to ensure that the council will have hell trying to do things they want to, and with Danzo and Hashi helping him, it should be interesting. It's likely that if we leave, we'll just train and collect bounties on missing ninja. Come back in 10 or 15 years when the council has changed. We will be part of Konoha but will not be given orders by them. Jiraiya has agreed to use his network to keep us informed of anything of importance. The next person to speak was Wahei. What if the council doesn't force you but is still going to force us? His voice was heavy with worry. Then the same thing will happen. I will leave and take the others with me. The council will bend to my will or will lose the most powerful members of its military force because I will not be a puppet to them anymore. For once they can feel what it's like to be the one being manipulated by someone who cares nothing for them or their agendas, he said calmly. For the next few days Naruto created clones to help Tenten and Tazuna complete the bridge. Another 50 or so to train Lee One to talk to and get to know his cousins whilst he trained and spent time with Hinata. Hashi had asked to test her against Hanabi when they returned because the previous council had made the arrangement that when the time came for an heir to be officially named, with Hinata being so weak at the time, they expected to name Hanabi as heiress to the clan. The new council had seen Hanabi's arrogance despite having the caged bird seal, and many had heard her still regard Hinata as weaker than herself, so they thought it would be best to go ahead with it. In just 3 days, with the help of shadow clones and several weight seals acting in different ways, Hinata had successfully become adept in 3 more taijutsu styles. One designed for speed, one for power, and one that aided in the fluidity of movements, which after just a couple of hours practice had allowed Hinata to turn what had once been anything up to 12 attacks from 4 completely different styles into a single unbroken attack. Using the Byakugan, she would systematically pinpoint and attack opening after opening, giving her opponent no chance of rest and wearing them down very quickly. Everyone got up and went through the usual routines. Tenten and Tazuna had completed the bridge the day before, and now they were just waiting for the reply from the Hokage so that Naruto could make his decisions and they could return to Konoha. Naruto had formed a basic plan: 1 clone for the bridge to wait for Denkoseka, 6 for Tenten, 100 for Lee, 1 would talk with Wahei, Taihei and Utsuri. He had learned a lot about them as well as what had happened to their mother and father. 1 would stay with Kakashi at the house training Inari, and he would personally work with Hinata. Around lunchtime his clone from the bridge arrived with a scroll, handed it to him and promptly dispersed itself. He looked at the seal on the scroll, his father's crest adorning it. He instantly recognized it as AB seal and promptly bit his thumb and swiped it across the seal, causing it to disappear in a puff of smoke. Hinata noticed the smoke, stopped what she was doing and joined him. He opened the scroll and carefully read its contents. Naruto, I have checked the laws and found that whilst there is no guarantees, it might be possible to persuade the council to let up on you if you were to donate your sperm for artificial insemination in other women. As regards to the minimum number required for them to be unable to force you, it currently stands at 4 members loyal to Konoha. It does not specify of what gender they must be. Therefore, if you could find 3 other people using the Fuengen, it shouldn't be a problem to stop them, as once there are 4 people with any given Kekkei Genkai, to law allowing polygamous marriages is no longer usable. However, there is a slight glitch with it, again something put in place to protect Kekkei Genkai. If by the time the youngest member is 24 years of age, 1 or more members have not become engaged or successfully married, or 1 or more members are unable to procreate, then they are, for the purpose of this law, considered unable to use the Kekkei Genkai. They maintain any clan status they have that is recognized in relation to this law. I seriously hope you've found your 3 cousins. I had feared a mess, and if they are added to the ranks of Konoha shinobi, then the council will be unable to do anything. I look forward to your return. Love, your father. Naruto smiled and handed the scroll to Hinata. She quickly read through it and smiled broadly. This was exactly what Naruto wanted. He could return to Konoha without fear of having to leave or trying to bend the council to his will. Hinata handed the scroll back to him, and while he rolled it up, she carefully dismissed her clones. Once done, they headed off in the direction of Tazuna's house. Along the way, Naruto created and dispelled a clone to pass the information on to the others to bring everyone back to the house. How on earth he managed it when he was the closest to the house was completely beyond the comprehension of any of those present. Even the clone that had been with him couldn't work out how it had taken him half an hour to walk a distance that should have taken Inari no more than 5 minutes, but somehow Kakashi had made a 25-minute detour, while walking in a straight line. Naruto looked around the room before beginning. Now that everyone is finally here, he paused as everyone in the room turned to glare at Kakashi. I have received a reply from my father regarding the law. I was careful to put nothing in my letter that could have hinted at having found even information suggesting the possibility of surviving Fuengen uses other than myself. However, my father knew exactly who I'd found. I also included a delayed progress report which the questions I asked were hidden within. The information he sent back is quite interesting as it holds 2 base scenarios. He paused and looked around the room to find that other than Hinata, who was snuggling up to him and sounded almost asleep, he had everyone's full attention. The first, preferable, scenario is that we all return to Konoha. The council gets to shove a brick up its collective arse so it can s it back out when it finds out I've got 3 cousins all able to use the Fuengen and all capable of having children, thus shooting down in a brilliant ball of flames yet another attempt by the council of Konoha to control me. Throughout this dialogue his hands had been quite animated and everyone appeared very pleased with the news. However, their joy dropped when they saw the solemn look on his face. The second is that for whatever reason one of you 3 is unable to have children. This puts any remaining males in a tough spot, as that will then give the council the means they need to not only force myself but also any other male members into, in my case, a civil partnership, which I'm at least a little lucky in that Konoha law only permits 1 of. Or in the case of either of you 2, he motioned to Wahei and Taihei, most likely at least 3 marriages each. Fortunately for you, Utsuri women cannot be forced into marriage to protect them from rape. That doesn't stop some of the clans from arranging them and then, as they would say, persuading, which basically amounts to, do it or else, with any number of possible punishments depending on the clan and the individual. He explained. You could almost hear the cogs in Taihei's mind working. He wasn't always the quickest of thinkers, but he was the one most likely to find the solution everyone else missed. Is there a way we can check before we return to Konoha to make sure? He asked. Naruto looked thoughtful for a moment before breaking out in his trademark foxy grin. Yes, there is. Amongst my arsenal of jutsu there is one that does that. I'm sure that I will be fine as I've kept the healing ability, and I seriously doubt that damn fox would have let me be sterile. Although if I know him he probably modified me so that some of his traits would be passed on as well, but regardless we can find out, he answered. He then quickly started going through hand seals, stopped and put his hands in a focus sign and then moved it first over Utsuri, who was sitting directly across from him, then moved to her left to Wahei and again to Taihei. He held on Taihei a little longer than the others before putting his hands down with a thoughtful look on his face again. Well, I've got some good news and some not as good news. First, the good news. Wahei, Utsuri, you're both completely fine, but the not so good news is that Taihei, whilst you aren't sterile, your tubes are blocked, which causes a problem. I can fix it, but the procedure is quite invasive and could leave your voice a few octaves higher for a few days, although that's a 50 out of 50 guess at best. It's your call if you want to do it or not. Either I can do it or I can talk Utsuri or Wahei through the procedure and show them the technique so that they could do it. What do you want to do? He asked. It was a difficult decision to make. He could still procreate, but his chances of doing so were slim, and everyone knew that that could be all the council needed to cause trouble, but if he could prevent it completely it was worth it, and the quickest way would be to have Naruto himself do it. What do you need to do it, and how long will it take for you to do? He asked. Naruto again got a thoughtful look before answering. I don't need anything except a private room. It'll take about an hour to perform and you'll probably need to sleep until tomorrow morning afterwards, he said. Miss Tsunami, would we be able to use one of your rooms? Asked Taihei. Tsunami looked at the young man and smiled. Of course you can, I'll go and make one ready now, replied Tsunami, and with that she left to ready a room for them to use. Around 20 minutes later Tsunami came back downstairs and motioned for them to go up. As Naruto and Taihei went upstairs, Hinata went outside with Wahei and Utsuri to get to know them. Kakashi was going to take Inari and continue training him, but Tsunami said she needed to talk to him about something, so instead he went out with Tenten and Lee with the intention of helping Lee learn how to recognize and overcome genjutsu and giving Tenten some jutsu to learn to enhance her overall skills as well as a solid backup if she either ran out of or lost her weapons. Around an hour and a half later a clone joined the two groups to bring them back to the house where Naruto was sitting beside at the small table near the door. Kakashi was not late this time after a threat from the clone that if he was late he would not be having a relationship again, and he sat to Naruto's left with Lee to his left and Tenten after that, then Tazuna, Tsunami with Inari on her lap opposite Naruto, then Utsuri on the far right corner with Wahei next to her directly on Naruto's right, and Hinata snuggled happily on Naruto's lap. He's sleeping now, all went according to plan and he should be fine, he'll be back to normal in a couple of days, but maybe. Naruto paused to think of the best way to word it. A little sore, he finished. He then looked to Tsunami and she took the hint. I've talked with my father and Inari and we've decided to go to Konoha with you and we will live there. It's time we moved on, and whilst this place holds many great memories for us, it also holds a number of bad memories, and so we talked it over and decided a fresh start in Konoha is the way to go. Since we already have all of you there, it will make settling in that much easier for us, she explained. Sounds great. We leave the day after tomorrow, so decide what you'd like to take and I'll seal it in scrolls the day we leave. Saves trying to carry it, said Naruto happily. Thank you, replied Tsunami, smiling kindly. The next day passed by uneventfully. Taihei was up and about but moving, well, waddling around slowly. Tsunami had started gathering things together and Naruto was sealing them into scrolls. Hinata sat at the table most of the day playing. Or rather hammering. Lee at shogi. Tenten watched every third game between reading some novel and noticed that Lee was improving. Just so slowly that he would reach the level Hinata was already at in about 10 years. Kakashi read his smut most of the day, initially with intermittent perverted giggles. Until Utsuri threatened to chuck cold water over him and the book if he didn't keep quiet, and then put it away when Naruto threatened to take it and let her tear it up if he didn't put it away. At the end of the sentence the book promptly vanished. He then finished the rest of the day by teaching Inari to climb walls. Whilst his chakra reserves would only allow him to climb the first floor, it did also suggest that he had the potential for a very high chakra reserve if trained properly. Everyone ready to go? Asked Naruto. It was lunchtime 2 days after Taihei's operation. He was still sore but could walk at a pace that wouldn't slow the group down since it was still quicker than Tazuna's. Getting nods from everyone they moved off, Naruto and Hinata taking point, then Tazuna and Taihei behind them and Tsunami and Inari behind them with Kakashi and Wahei flanking, and then Lee, Utsuri and Tenten at the back. They had decided on this basic formation to ensure that everyone stayed safe. It kept everyone close together with the able protecting the untrained and unable. The journey took a total of 3 days with a group of 20 bandits that Hinata used as practice and a group of 2 that Inari took care of, with Naruto keeping a careful eye in case he got in any real danger. By the time they got to Konoha, Taihei was completely healed, not even feeling any discomfort. He had opted to take point until they got within sight of Konoha's main gates, at which point Naruto moved in front of him, knowing the guards would be on alert seeing such a large number of people heading for Konoha. As they approached the gate, one of the guards stepped into their path. You do know you've just cost me 1,000 ryo, don't you? He asked. Naruto just smiled, typical of these two. Anyone else and they might have had a problem. These two were a different story. They were smart and able to analyze things quickly, and the two cherries that, in Naruto's opinion, topped it all off. They had only ever seen him as the boy and both had something of a hidden love for practical jokes. Neither would admit it, but more than once Naruto had seen them in shares on the floor, completely unable to give chase after seeing some of his pranks. Should have known it would be you two on duty, so I owe you 500 Ryo, no problem. Send a message to the Hokage and tell him that I'm on my way with company, replied Naruto, putting his hands behind his head. As he walked by the guard, he high-fived him, but as Taihei, Wahei and Utsuri approached the gate, the guard suddenly became tense, recognizing them from the bingo book. Naruto noticed his reaction and spoke to him. Relax, Kotetsu, they aren't going to be attacking anyone, they've come to join Konoha, he said monotonously. How can you trust them? They're wanted in the bingo book, the Soko siblings. The only person from Konoha to ever encounter them alive was Itachi Uchiha, replied the Chunin guard. Naruto sighed and shook his head. How could he not have foreseen this? Well, at least he didn't outright attack them. I can trust them because they're my cousins. My father already knows they're with us. You know what? Screw the message, we'll just go straight there. It'll be a lot easier once they have forehead protectors, he said. Then he walked over to the group, pulled Hinata in close to him and walked into the center and activated his Fuengen. Alright everyone, make sure everyone is touching. Okay, everyone ready? Later guys, he said, and with that the group was gone. Kotetsu and Izumo were gobsmacked. They looked at each other, then back at the location that the group had been in. A repeated before Izumo spoke up. Was that what I think it was? His voice was a little shaky. I'm not entirely sure, but what else could it be? Replied Kotetsu. Again they looked at each other before Kotetsu walked back around to the inside of the guard post and they continued doing paperwork to try and pass the time. They didn't like it, but it was less boring than doing nothing. Hey Dad, said Naruto as the group appeared in the Hokage's office, to find Minato sitting with Hashi in front of him. Oh, hello Hashi, are we disturbing you? We can wait outside if you want, he asked. No, that's quite alright, we were just waiting for you to return. I had expected you would come back today, although I am curious as to why you just came straight in and didn't walk through the city. Replied Minato. Naruto grinned and scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Well, we were, but Kotetsu and Izumo couldn't comprehend that these three weren't here to fight. He motioned to Wahei, Taihei and Utsuri. I figured that any Anbu or Jonin that saw them would likely have the same reaction till they had Konoha forehead protectors, so it was easier to just come straight here, he explained. And why have you returned, Tazuna? Minato asked the aged bridge builder. My family and I have come to the decision to move to Konoha, he replied. Very well, I will make the arrangements, he said, and then turned his attention to his niece and nephews, Wahei. Taihei, it's so good to see you again, and Utsuri, it's good to finally meet you. You've grown so much. After your parents' I heard nothing about you and feared you all. I'm glad to see my fears were unfounded. Now then, I just need to fill out a few forms and then I need to send you over to the hospital. Naruto shuddered when he heard that word and Hinata giggled at him. And Tsunade will check you over and make sure you're fine. Once that's done, I'll give you your Konoha forehead protectors, explained Minato as he started filling out the forms. Thank you, Uncle Minato, said Wahei. Father, I know you'd like to get back home for this little match, but I'd like to stay until all this has been sorted out, if that's alright. Hinata asked. Hashi smiled. Of course we can wait, it will do Hanabi good to have to wait. There was talk amongst the council of using Hanabi as something of an example and continue using the caged bird seal as a punishment rather than a birth defect. It will still mark the person as a lesser being, but instead of being for only branch members and only a lesser being in the eyes of the clan, it would be in the eyes of Konoha, and until they proved that they had changed and the reason it was put on was no longer valid, it would stay, replied Hashi. Hinata didn't like the idea entirely but could see the logic. Instead of being a mark that marked a majority, it would mark just a few and show them as having done a serious wrong. 2 hours later, they once again stood in the Hokage's office facing Minato as he looked through the medical reports from Tsunade on each of the three ninja, and he was surprised to find that each one showed them in almost perfect health. Well, now, you're all in excellent health. For now, I'll put you on our roster as Genin under Naruto's command. Before you complain, I have no doubt that you'll be stronger than Genin. It'll only be for 6 months. Since you have no previous village affiliation, I can't give you a higher rank till you've completed the Chunin exams, then I'll be able to give you ranks better in line with your skills. Just as he said this, there was a knock at the door. Come in, he shouted. The door opened and his secretary stuck her head round the door. So the team you sent to Suna has returned. I'll have them wait till you're finished, she said. No, send them straight in, he said quickly. The secretary nodded and disappeared back outside the door. A few moments later, Gaara, Kankuro, Temari and Sasuke walked into the room. Welcome home, I trust you had a good trip? Asked Minato. Yes, thank you sir. After learning of your return and how easily Naruto had defeated me, the Kazekage was all too eager to sign a peace treaty, with much of it going in Konoha's favor, said Gaara. Excellent, excellent, thank you Gaara. Now then I'd like to introduce you four to the newest members of Konoha's ninja force, the Uzumaki siblings, said Minato. Wait, you mean relatives of Naruto? Asked Sasuke. Minato smiled. Yep, they're my cousins, replied Naruto. Sasuke turned to his friend and looked at him. No hint of a lie, just overwhelming joy. He broke out in a smile. I'm glad you're finding real family, bro, he said. Gaara looked over the three ninja. The two boys didn't really bother him. The girl, however, she caught his eye. To him she was like a goddess. However, his lingering gaze did not go unnoticed by either Naruto or Temari, and they both started forming plans, Naruto with more ease than Temari, to get the two together. Now then, Wahei, Taihei, Utsuri, said Minato. Even her name is perfect. Harmony, thought Gaara. I think it would be best if you stayed in one of the houses at the Namikaze estate, at least for the time being. Minato finished. Sounds good. When do we get our first mission? Asked Wahei. Not for a couple of days yet. We'll wait till you're properly settled in first. Now here are your forehead protectors and have a good day all of you, said Minato, handing forehead protectors to Wahei, Taihei and Utsuri and then going back to the paperwork in front of him that appeared to have grown. Dad, said Naruto. This caused Minato to look at him. Shadow clones, he finished. Minato smacked his forehead with his palm and two shadow clones appeared, one on either side of him. Then everyone left the room so he could get on with his work. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.